Welcome to the Business Bites Podcast, the podcast for busy entrepreneurs. Whether you're an online entrepreneur or seeking after brick and mortar success, this podcast brings you quick bites of content so you can learn and grow anywhere you are. Now here's your host, Rachel Brainke.
Hey guys, it's Rachel Brainke with the Business Bites Podcast, and this is
episode 95.
You are going to be able to find all of the show notes at rachelbrainke.com. We are coming up very quickly on the 100th episode, and guys, I cannot express to you how appreciative and grateful I am. So if you guys could please take a couple seconds just to leave a quick review, hopefully 5-star, on the podcast platform that you're listening to with this so that the podcast can continue without having ad placement, because my mission is to help you guys have information for free that's hard hitting. What's really important, I think, about the Business Bites podcast, apart from many other podcasts that are out there, is that I cut through the fluff, I cut through the muff, and we're specifically getting into action items that you guys can target in on. Like today, we want to talk a little bit about developing a personal brand, and I don't want you guys to be confused to believe that this is only if you're going to be like an influencer, only if you're trying to get like sponsors based on who you are and what like you wear or what you can show in photos. It really is fundamentally about the connection that you're going to have with your audience. And there's 3 major tips that I have for this. And I want you guys to dig into this. So go ahead, take a pause, go leave the reviews for me, grab a pad of paper, pencil, and hopefully something to drink, coffee, wine, whatever is your poison, and come right back so we can dig in. All right, so the 3 tips, the 3 topics, the 3 major headliners that I want to talk about in developing personal brand. Number 1, I want you guys to really commit to having consistency. I know this sounds a little cliche, but I think the most important thing, even if you feel like you don't have much of a personality, you don't have much of a story, you don't have a schedule, it's all about consistency. Being in front of people is going to continually to imprint on their mind. Think about the word brand. What does it mean? Brand comes from branding. Let's think about it in the context of what happens to animals when they're branded. They are seared with a hot iron onto their flesh. So what you're trying to do, and yes, I understand, that's a very graphic and unfortunate thing to think about, but in the context of business, and you want to be as consistent as possible, and you want to sear your brand into the brain of the people that are consuming your content. So whether it's potential clients, potential networks, potential sponsors, you want to make sure that they are repeatedly and consistently seeing your brand. And the unfortunate thing is that we no longer can do this simply by posting, right? Because the algorithms today, the mass amounts of people that are on social media, we cannot just simply post and everything be seen. Maybe 7-10 years ago on Facebook, that was enough, but it's not anymore. And especially if you're in the Twitter or Instagram game, it's definitely not going to help you. So this is where you need to get consistent, not just in posting, but also consistent in developing the ways that people are going to find you, all right? So this can be multi-level, multifaceted here. It can be simply, maybe you want to get on multiple channels because you're going to go on other people's podcasts, or you're going to use hashtags in a strategic way. All of that is going to depend upon who you're trying to reach, what your unique selling proposition is. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about when I mention USP, unique selling proposition, or who you're going to talk to, click over to rachelbrainke.com/EPI12, then come back to this. I'm also going to link all related episodes that I talk about in this podcast. So you can just cut straight to the chase and go to
rachelbrainke.com/EPI95.
First point is consistency. Like, even if you think you have nothing hard-hitting to say something. Have a fun, inspirational quote, a little quip, an engagement question. Just say something and get in front of the audience. And I think that is the biggest thing, is that many people become paralyzed by perfection as opposed to imperfect action. I'm going to tell you now that imperfect action, so that is tip number 1. Tip number 2 is just outlining your likes and preferences. I mean, not everyone's going to be your cup of tea. And if you've listened to episode 12 that I have, which is the magic of a client avatar, so rachelbranke.com/EPI12, we talk a lot about this bell curve. And you guys can go through and work through the template that I have over there. I give it audibly, and you can easily jot it down. And you're going to result on the other side of who you're trying to reach, which you can then reverse engineer to determine what you're going to say. And that's where point number 2 is with this, of developing a personal brand, is that you're then going to be able to come up with the things that you're able to touch that avatar with. They're going to speak to the avatar. And a lot of it is probably going to be rooted in your preferences. Majority of people, and this is anecdotal statistics, so don't go and get all scientific on me, but the majority of people that I work with when I do one-to-one business consulting, which yes, I do, so inquire through rachelbranke.com, but the majority of people attract those that are similar. Like birds of a feather flock together. And there's a reason for that. Very rarely, I mean, I do see it, but very rarely do I see people who are trying to attract those that are not similar to them. So when you're developing a personal brand, it's fairly easy to talk about your preferences. Everybody has a preference about things. Do you like thin spaghetti or thick spaghetti? So those are the types of things that you can talk about. And it's funny because maybe your spaghetti dish or your pasta dish may not have absolutely anything to do with your business. It doesn't have anything to do with my legal business. But guess what? I'm able to relate to people on a level that we both have specific and identical or related interests. Interest/preferences is going to be your number 2 that you guys want to really focus in on, because you're going to be able to make that personal connection. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I see, especially if you're somebody who's listening and you're in a professional services type of position, whether you're a lawyer, maybe you're a doctor, and when I say doctor, and lawyer, in related fields. You could be teaching law, you could be advising on law, you could be business consulting on legal things, on the on the doctor side. You could be even from chiropractic to integrative medicine. It can be a whole gamut of things there. Expand your mind, see what you're offering, and just know that you also fit into those buckets that I'm talking about as well. The first one was identifying and being as consistent as possible. And the second is preferences. Before I get to number 3, and perhaps this also could be an additional bonus for you guys here, is having a schedule is really important. And I'm not saying freak out if you don't post at 7 p.m. every night or 7 p.m. on Tuesdays and 2 p.m. on Wednesdays. What I mean is work in a formula, a scheduled formula, okay? Let's do 4. Let's do 4 subject matter buckets, right? We're going to do an engagement question. We're going to do a hot topic in what I'm trying to teach or connect people with. I'm going to do something that's personally about me. And then I'm also, number 4, going to have a call to action to get people to buy into me. And the reason for this, and this ties into the preferences and consistency, is because you can just sit down anytime and post. You can go, oh, yesterday I said engagement, so now today I need to have a call to action. You already know. You don't have to sit around and screw around and figure out what you need to post for the day, because you have a consistent schedule about your preferences and what you're trying to teach and your ideal client avatar. Again, episode 12. I keep dropping that only because it's our number 1 episode, which is so funny because I bring so much legal information, but because it's hard hitting and it is a good foundation for no matter what type of business that you're in. All right. So we have consistency as number 1, preferences is number 2, and then kind of this bonus, and I guess we can make it number 3, is our schedule. What I really had intended for our number 3 is to ensure that we're going to have a clear call to action of what we want people to do. I see this particularly with fashion bloggers, right? They'll post about, oh, look at my new Louis Vuitton bag and Jimmy Choo shoes, and that's it. They're just showing the bags, and it's this cliffhanger, this fall off the side of the cliff without any excitement for the viewer. It's well, what do you want me to do? You want to call them to action. And if you guys recall, that was actually one of the 4 buckets that I just mentioned when I was talking about scheduling and the bonus of this, right? it's really important that we are identifying of having specific calls to action. And I want to be the first to admit it. Like, I'm one of those, and you guys have seen through my Business Bites podcast, is that I am one of those that I'm not big to push the products that I have. I literally have legal templates for everything that I talk about. And so I'm a crappy salesperson sometimes, and I don't want to talk about it, but because I also don't want to sound salesy. But the reality of it is that in order to make a personal brand work, in order for it to actually be a brand, and I think this is what the distinctive difference with number 3 that I'm talking about here with this call to action, the difference between a simple personal posting about what I'm wearing or what I'm doing that day versus a personal brand that has potential for growth, whether it's by buyers through Like to Know It app, or I'm using fashion bloggers as an example, but you guys can apply it to any industry. But by simply posting like, "Oh, look what I'm wearing," and my Like to Know It app, and that's it, with like no call to action, you're only a personal Instagram at that time, showing off what you're wearing, not a fashion blogger saying, "Hey, this is the new cutting edge fashion, and this is what you need to buy." Right? Do you guys see the difference with that? So fashion bloggers are obviously the most easiest. I don't even know what I'm saying. My brain has like been fried today, but like they are the easiest example for me to use for you guys. So hopefully you can apply it to whatever industry that you're in to understand that you need to have a call to action. And actually, this is me putting it out there that I'm going to be a little bit more specific in my calls to action. And maybe you've seen that in the last few podcasts. I've been specifically asking for reviews because I want to avoid sponsorships and stuff like that. I've been specifically talking about products and services because I want to have to avoid sponsorships and all that kind of stuff. Like, that for me is something I want to fulfill, but in order for that to happen, I've got to ask my audience in order to help fulfill that at the same time, right? Building of a personal brand. And the funny thing is, before I get into the recap, is that these sound so simplistic, but there's so many people out there that are just like throwing spaghetti noodles against the wall, and they're hoping that they stick. And then they're wondering what the hell is happening when the spaghetti noodles fall to the floor, right? And it's because they're not being specific in these steps. So hopefully these 3 steps are going to help you guys, because no matter what you're doing, whether you're in a corporate environment, whether you own that corporation or not, or if you're a solo creative business, you need to inject some personal brand in there, whether the branding is under your name or not. Personality sells. Sterile corporate logos and structured and mission statements do not sell. All right, guys, just to let you know, a wrap up on this, you guys can find all the notes again at rachelbranke.com. We're also going to be having a thread, as usual, about it in the Business Bites Facebook group. So just search Business Bites, or you can just go straight to the podcast page, and it's also going to have the group link there for you. I have been loving that since I've been, imagine this, doing the call to action of having people join the group. We've had a bunch of you guys, bunch of listeners join in, and the conversation has been exploding. So I love it, and I hope to see you guys on the inside.
Thanks for joining Rachel on this episode of the Business Bites. For show notes, a list of recommended tools, or referenced episodes, you can find them at businessbitespodcast.com. Until next time.